capitalism is okay, gives us some good stuff, but it by and large is cruel and unfair and unequal, and it needs a lot of intervention from the elites to protect us from the capitalists. And that was the nature of my reporting for 15 years. I went on TV and I bashed business night after night. And there were lots of businesses worth bashing. The Coffee Institute ran ads saying, coffee's the drink that picks you up. Well, it calms you down. So we called them up and said, how can you say this? It's contradictory. Well, we have research to back this up. Really? What's the research? Well, we surveyed thousands of people. We asked them, when do you get out of your coffee break? Some said it picked them up, some said it calmed them down. Liddy Owen's Ford Glass Company was running ads saying, look how clear our car window glass is. And they shot them with the windows rolled down. So this is why we consumer activists said, we have to fix this. We have to have a federal trade commission, advertising regulation, laws and lawyers to protect us from them. And I probably, uniquely in America, had a ringside seat on the regulatory state. And I didn't have the wisdom that many of you apparently have. It took me many years watching them to see this wasn't working. That the rules meant to help people were not helping consumers. They were making life worse. They were covering all life in a spiderweb of little rules that was enriching lawyers and helping bureaucrats build empires. But it didn't even affect the obvious crooks. The people selling the breast enlargers and the burn fat while you sleep pills, they kept getting away with it. They're still getting away with it. Didn't affect them. The cheaters could still cheat, but everybody else was burdened by new rules. The more I've watched the market work, the more stunned I am by how good it is at protecting consumers compared to government solutions. It took me too long to see that the ruthless competition of the market protects us, that the bad companies atrophy. Word gets out. The way to get rich is to give people stuff we want, better cars, better supermarkets. Bill Gates gave us software we wanted. He made the pie bigger. And that's one of those phrases that's meaningless to people. I was listening to Cato Audio the other day, and someone said something that made it stick home. He's pointed out that 200 years ago, oil was this pollutant that people were finding on their property now and then, and they didn't know what to do with it. Now we know what to do with it. Now poor people can afford to stay up after dark and read because somebody figured out how to refine it and make it useful and create wealth, make the pie bigger. Free markets do that. Government doesn't. The market even will protect us, as I looked at safety issues and information issues. It works even in areas where intuitively we wouldn't think it would. For example, look at the greedy, profit-driven companies that have employed me. I've worked for ABC, NBC, CBS, all the big networks and their affiliates, and they get all their profit, every penny, from advertisers. So you would think advertisers would run the show, but they don't. All the networks have boards of censors that review every ad that comes in and demand changes if they think there's something that's false. Demand 2 medical studies for a medical claim. In some cases, reject the money outright. Why? Why would they turn the money away? Because they figured out they can make more money if their ad time is not viewed as an environment for sleaze. Self-policing works. We wouldn't think it would, but it does. Look how it worked for me. I was a consumer reporter bashing business. I was biting the hands that fed me for 15 years. But the suit went away, and we only had to pay the lawyers too much money, but they decided they could make more money because the market works in surprising ways. They figured out that more of you would watch a news station that gave honest information about sponsors' products too. And what they lose in lawsuits and lost advertising, they'd make up because they had more viewers. What Nader said was completely wrong. The opposite was true, as is the case with a lot of what Ralph says. There's no consumer reporting on PBS, public TV, because the timid bureaucrats who run it are too nervous about offending people. But it thrives in commercial television. Markets protect us in unexpected ways. Now, when I say this, people usually say, well, maybe it'll protect us from trivial stuff like that. But when it comes to the serious issues, whether we live or die, whether we're safe, then you need OSHA, CPSC, the whole alphabet soup of agencies we have in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. And intuitively, this makes sense. Risks, there's bad stuff happening, we need the elites to watch out for us, to set rules to protect us. It took me too long to see that, in general, it makes life worse. That all these rules, by interfering with the market, with the natural wishes of millions of free people, the rules create unintended side effects, bad consequences that make us less safe. Let's look at it as a thought experiment in one area. Let's look at the drug laws, legal and illegal. Illegal first. I now have 2 teenage kids. Again, intuitively, I'm glad that heroin, cocaine are illegal. They can't zip down to the neighborhood pharmacy and go get high. Maybe that will deter them. But I don't know that it will deter them. I mean, human nature is when you're a teenager, there's the forbidden fruit effect. Maybe the illegality makes the stuff more appealing. And we're certainly not keeping the kids from getting the stuff. We can't keep it out of prisons. I don't know how we think we're going to keep it out of America. And now they'll be inventing, with bioengineering, inventing designer drugs faster than government could make them illegal. So I'm not sure what the law accomplishes. Maybe a certain percentage of Americans will abuse intoxicants, regardless of what the law is. I don't know. But I do now know what the unintended consequences of the law are, because now I can see them, and they are nasty. I'll just mention 4. First, the crime. I mean, nicotine, says the government, is about as addictive as heroin. Yet no one's knocking over 7-Elevens to get Marlboros. It's the law that causes the crime. Almost never do people get high on these drugs and go commit crimes. Cocaine's probably the worst, and rarely will it cause someone to commit a crime. The crime is caused because it's illegal. The sellers can't rely on the police to protect their private property, so they arm themselves and form gangs. And the buyers steal to pay the high prices. The law causes all this vicious drug crime. Secondly, we're corrupting cops. We're asking cops who make maybe $20,000 a year to turn down a $20,000 bribe. Not all do. Third, we're telling kids who live in ghettos that entry-level jobs, McDonald's, are for suckers. Why work there for minimum wage when your little brother can make more acting as a lookout for the drug dealers? And the role models, the people with the best cars and the best clothes, are criminals. And then we're creating unbelievably rich criminal gangs. We forget that alcohol prohibition created Al Capone and organized crime. The gangs we're creating now are even richer. They'll soon be able to buy nuclear weapons. Osama bin Laden was funded partly by drug money. So why are we doing this? Well, to protect us from ourselves. But that's a good thing to do in a free society. Where does it stop? Then there is no limit to what government can do. Maybe there should be exercise police who come into our homes and make us run laps and do push-ups. Let's go on to legal drugs. We have the FDA to protect us from snake oil cells. And here too, it intuitively sounds good. Some people will want to sell me garbage, sell me cocaine-laced aspirin, and the Food and Drug Administration will make sure the drugs are safe and effective. And they protected us from thalidomide. This was their first big success. This was a tranquilizer that some women took during pregnancy, and they gave birth to children with severe birth defects. It wasn't that the FDA was so smart that they protected us, they were just so slow that by the time it was toward the end of the approval process, the ill effects were being seen in Australia and Europe. So I'm glad they protected us from thalidomide. But now I have to ask, is it worth it? I don't think so anymore. Because since then, they grew in size tenfold. All agencies grew, the FDA has grown more. Now it takes about 15 years to get a new drug approved. It's one reason drugs are so expensive. And intuitively, good, let's make sure it's safe. But now I have to say it isn't worth it, because government, when it protects us from bad things, protects us from good things too. Some years ago at a press conference, the FDA announced it was approving a new beta blocker. This new heart drug, they said, this will save 14,000 American lives a year. How come no reporter stood up at the press conference and said, that's great, but doesn't this also mean that you killed 14,000 people last year? We don't think that way, but it did mean that.